Welcome everybody. This is Oluwatobi. Right here today, I want to teach you three basic things you have to put in place before you fight your opponent. Before you arrange your fist, right? Once your opponent stand right here, you have to first of all know the definition of your opponent. And what I mean by definition of your opponent, you have to know how to define your opponent's stance. If at all your opponent have arrange his fist right, so the way your opponent stand is going to tell you what your opponent is going to use. Even some people, some martial arts practitioner, martial arts expert know their opponent technique through their stance, and they know that because they can define their opponent, they can define their opponent stance, they can define their opponent move, how their opponent arrange their in his fist. So you have to define your opponent, know the definition of your opponent's stance, right? So right here, form your stance, right? So now I know my opponent. I know my opponent definition right here. If I stand like this, I know you have to also know your you have to also know your definition. You have to give your stance also. You have to give yourself definition. You have to know the position you stand, right? Now you stand like this. You have to now, once you can define your position, right? If you can define your position right, so now you will notice your weak point, because your weak point is the place that your opponent is going to punch, right? So like this, because I know the definition of my opponent, I can define my opponent's stance, right? This may be the first punch of my opponent, or this, if your opponent, this is going to surely be your first opponent punch, right? But if your opponent body structure, no, don't change the position. If your opponent structure is like this, both punch are in the same level, right? So you got to know that maybe your opponent is going to use this, or your opponent is going to use this. That is the definition of your opponent. So I'm helping you, but this is tip. But if you want to know more details on this, on your opponent's stance, so just make sure you join my personal online training. I'm going to teach you everything, right? So now I've already give you first tip on how to define your opponent. You have to know how to define your opponent's stance, right? Once you finish with that, now you now watch your opponent's hand, your opponent's shoulder with your opponent's eyes. So mainly let your eyes fix on your opponent. So once your eyes fix on your opponent's eyes, you are going to notice when your opponent want to attack you right here. Anytime you like attack. So he doesn't tell me the time you want to attack, right? He doesn't tell me the time you want to attack. But I'm looking at his eyes, right? So, and I'm looking at his, even if I don't look his eyes, right? If I'm looking this place, if I'm looking at other side, right? I'm going to be using side of my eye to be watching his shoulder. Once I see that shoulder move, I will act, right? Anytime you like. So that is another tip on what you have to know. Tips on how tips on what you have to put in place before you fight your opponent, before you even attack your opponent, right? So one another thing you have to know is know your opponent's weak point, know your opponent's weak place. So just don't punch the place that your opponent have already closed, right here. Like this, if I'm punching this place, this is the place my opponent have already closed. Even if my opponent is a boxer, he will quickly block this hand, right? That is why when chun don't first be the first person. When chun practitioner, don't be the first person to punch their host or their opponent, right? So once I'm punching my opponent, this is this place my opponent have already secured it, right? So, and I'm now testing that. Who am I deceiving? So that is that about that. So you have to notice your opponent's weak point. Your opponent's weak point is right here. Here. I just give you tip on that. that is where I just locate by myself. If it is if I'm the first person to attack him, right, what I'm going to do is to kick this leg right here to distract him so that I can go here. So that is that. So like this, so I can easily go here. If we am the first person to attack him, so that is what I'm going to do. So that is that on that. So you just go like this. So you now go here. That is quite preferable than to punch your opponent. To punch the place that your opponent have already guide, right? To be testing his guide, right? You don't test your opponent's guide, right? He's going to be easily dusting your punch, right? He's going to be easily packing your punch. He's going to be easily blocking your punch. So you have to attack your opponent attack at the same time. So if you are the first person to punch your opponent, that is one. But what you have to do now focus. So and I add this to this. Focus and let your mind be calm. So once you are focused and your mind is calm, you are going to notice, and your mind is going to pass information to you on what next to use once your eye see your opponent's weak point. Once your eye see, as you are fighting, your fighting is going on, so your mind is going to be passing you information, right? Because you are not filled with fear, anger, and your mind is empty. So your mind is empty. You are not feared, you are not angry. So for your opponent, so just let your mind be calm. So that your mind is going to give you information on your opponent technique, on your opponent stance, next move, right? Once your mind gives you chance, or your mind gives you signal on how your opponent is going to create next move, and then your weak point, your opponent next weak point, you are going to your fist is going to assemble itself, and you attack him quickly. So that is why I said anything you are doing, you have to let it flow. So if you don't let it flow, your body is going to be rigid. So, and you are going to know more about this technique and about what you have to put in place before you fight. You pick up fight with your opponent, even before you even assemble your fist that you are ready to fight your opponent. I hope you can understand what I'm explaining from the beginning, right? And if you have any question, ask me at the comment section. And if you want to join my personal learning journey, like I always said, in which I'm going to teach you and you're going to know more about my Wing Chun technique, hit me up at the comment section that you want to join my personal learning journey, and I'll be right here to tell you how you can join my personal learning journey. Keep on liking, keep on subscribing, keep on sharing. Peace.